What is fashion? It's a very hard question to answer. It's almost its own thing. We can define certain things as art, such as painting, sculpture, poetry, writing, music, because these all come from a similar place. They all mean something, they all express something. But fashion isn't always doing this. Designers don't always create pieces that mean something. Designers don't always create pieces that come from somewhere within themselves or something they experience. This is the main difference between this. But how do we get to this conclusion? How does the world kind of view fashion? And how has this been affected by something like fast fashion and capitalism and consumerism? Let's talk about it. So like I said earlier, fashion isn't quite like anything else that we have. Fashion isn't necessarily art because it doesn't always express something. Though fashion can be art, don't get me wrong. Great examples are designers like Alexander McQueen, Rei Kawakubo, Rick Owens. They all design from interpersonal feelings. They all design from something inside themselves, and a lot of their designs mean something. But this isn't the case for all fashion, and not even everything that they make. Not everything that Alexander McQueen ever sent down the runway meant something, but a lot of his stuff did. We can consider him an artist, but not everything that he made as art. And we can say this for a lot of designers. A lot of designers design from within themselves, but not everything that they do does. But the defining factor that kind of separates fashion from art is that fashion has to fulfill a function. Fashion has to be kind of fitted to the body. There's limitations in some respect. And people have figured out a way to kind of avoid those limitations. But in a way, there has to be these limitations. And that's really what makes it not art. Because if we look at it, a painting doesn't fulfill anything. It doesn't need to do anything in itself other than be what it is. In fashion, the clothes that people design not only need to look creative and express something, but they also have to be worn on the body. And so this is where the big difference comes in that separates art from fashion, and why a lot of fashion can't be considered art, because it isn't designed from a place within someone. It is designed solely for the purpose to be worn. Well, if it isn't art, could it be considered design? Does it have to be its own thing? Well, it could be. The big debate between art and design is that a lot of designs fulfill a need, which fashion does. But also fashion in itself is completely different than that. See, the big thing about fashion is it allows 3 modes of expression. 1, it allows the designer to express themselves. 2, it allows the viewer of the fashion to feel something or express something. And 3, it allows the wearer of the clothes to express themselves. So there's three forms of expression within fashion. Nothing else really does this. Art really only has 2. It allows for the artist to express something, and it allows for the viewer. This doesn't have a wearer to necessarily express anything. And the same thing with a lot of things that are designed. Architecture can be designed with a lot of meaning behind it. And it can also be viewed and kind of be taken in a certain way, which allows for the viewer to express something and the architect to express something. But here it falls into the same category as art, because it is only allowing 2 modes of expression. Fashion is unique in the way that it allows 3, which kind of separates it into its own category. When you look at fashion, you don't look, is this good or bad art? Is this good or bad design? You say, is this a good or a bad fashion? Because, truth be told, it is its own thing. And we can't really escape that. But how does everybody else see it? Well, the public view on fashion is a little bit different than, say, me, a fashion student. This is because the general public doesn't really care about fashion, and that's understandable. I don't care about everything that somebody else would care about, and you probably don't care about everything that I care about, and that's fine. Everybody has different interests. As we move forward, it does really seem like fashion is solely consumerism, especially to the general public. Seeing it today, you walk down the street and you see ads for H&M, Zara, Hollister, Uniqlo, American Eagle, and there's all these things, and in your mind, it's just saying buy, 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 buy. And that's what the American public sees. The general public doesn't see designs made by Tom Brown. The general public doesn't see Rick Owens' designs. This is because simply they don't care, like I said before. So all they see is consumerism. And why has this been elevated? Especially with the recent trend of a lot of people getting into fashion. And this is great. I love when people get into fashion, but it has created this kind of hole for people to take advantage of fashion. And that's where fast fashion comes in. With a lot of new interest in fashion over the past, I don't know, say 10, 20 years, it has created this hole for fast fashion to enter. This isn't necessarily a great thing, though, because fast fashion kind of capitalizes on everything that's bad about fashion. So fashion, designer fashion, whatever kind of fashion you like, it all creates waste. It all creates excess, and a lot of it exploits people, which is awful. And the truth of it is, it's kind of inescapable. There's ways that you can do your best to reduce waste. You can obviously pay your workers a living wage. If you have control of that, you can find union factories. And there's things that you can do to be preventative where you're not exploitative of people or the environment. But it's such a hard thing to get around where it's almost unavoidable in fashion. The problem with fast fashion is it doesn't try to avoid those things. Instead, it uses those things as a tool to make more profit. Fast fashion capitalizes off of everything that is bad with fashion. They create accelerated trend cycles to put more product to line quicker so they can sell more and then get more profit. The problem with that, though, is the more clothes that is produced, the more waste that is created. Not only in offcuts of fabric, not only in air pollution from the factories, water pollution from the dyeing process, but also in our own homes. Whenever you buy a multitude of new clothes, you have an excess in your room, so you get rid of it. Say you donate it, but the majority of donated clothes goes in the trash anyway. And another problem with these fast fashion companies is they aren't using materials that can be recycled. Anything that has a mixture of materials can never be recycled again. It can never be used for another purpose unless it's upcycled. But that accounts for such a small percent of goods that it's almost pathetic. So fast fashion takes advantage of all of these things and kind of creates almost a bad image for fashion because all they're doing it for is for profit. They're not doing it for the creative aspect. They're not doing it just to clothe people. They are doing it solely for profit. And that's the sad part about it. And that has really affected the public view on what fashion is, because fashion, in its essence, should be an outlet to let designers be creative. It should have an outlet to let the viewer feel something whenever looking at it. And fashion lets the wearer express themselves in a multitude of ways. That's my favorite part about fashion. But it has been diminished by things like fast fashion, where it's not that anymore to the public. It's just consumerism. It's just buy, buy, buy. So whenever you think or talk about fashion, always remember, in its essence, it is itself. It is a mode of expression for so many people, and it is truly one of the greatest forms of creativity on this planet. But also keep in mind that only you can help change it for the better.